All right, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good Saturday morning, my fabulous Sonder fam. I love the folks. I realized I always like to use these cute little, on a scale of whatever kind of where are you? And I realized most of these, I think, um, they're a little I don't want to say negative, but they're not quite as positive as usually there's some positive ones. So I love that you all have taken over in the chat and come up with things like believing bow tie, grateful gnocchi, what was it, positive spaghetti, striving spaghetti. I love that one. There's all sorts of fun one. Friendly farfalla. I love it. So yes, I think if somebody is good with making fun little graphics, I think you should make us some fun, maybe some more fun on the scale of pasta. How are we today? Yeah. So if anybody loving linguine, yeah, so fun. Everybody, it's like, ooh, who knows their pasta? All these different kinds of pasta shapes. So that's my challenge. If anyone is a good graphic person, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Just kind of throw some in there. And elegant elbow macaroni, right? So make one of those and put it in Sonder Club so we can have some fun and potentially more positive pasta vibes going on here. So welcome again. If I haven't met you yet, my name is Maya and I am here in Denver, Colorado, where winter finally decided to show up for a few days. We had a little bit of snow in Denver, with a lot of snow in the mountains, which is good. Not as much as we need, but it's getting there. But it's 14 degrees this morning, so definitely cold, even though it was, I think, like 70 degrees on Wednesday. So I know lots of folks are dealing with all sorts of wacky weather, getting some different snow. California, I saw was getting some snow like in the Reno, Tahoe. Um, that area is definitely getting some snow. I think the East Coast is going to get some more snow this weekend. So I'm sorry for you all. I know it's been a pretty snowy winter, so hopefully you're staying warm. Is it anybody's first time here to social? First time in Sonder Club, getting your Silk and Sonder? First time showing up for a weekly social? You can just put a little me in the chat. Want to make sure we give you a good welcome. I know I see lots of familiar names in there, but we always want to welcome our new folks. Give you a few tips and tricks. So specifically that chat box, that little blue chat box, make sure that it says everyone. It has an obnoxious tendency to flip back to host and panelist. And when it does that, the only people that see what you write there in the chat is myself and my fabulous co-facilitator, Bailey, who is coming to us from Tennessee. She will be hanging out in the chat. Sometimes the chat gets going a little fast, I will say. And so if that stresses you out, you could just turn that off, right? You don't have to necessarily have the chat going. Some people like to come and they hang out mostly in the chat. They take some notes about how they want to do their weekly setup. And then they do that later. They want to hang out with their Sonder fam there in the chat and catch up. Some folks, it's totally nose and journal. They ignore the chat, totally working on the different sections, wanting to make sure to get all those done. Some folks do a mix. We always have a social Saturday, Sunday, and then there's one Monday morning. So you're welcome to come to as many of those as you need. So some people come to one to chat, come to another to work on their journal, and then they'll come to a third if they can to just finish things up. So you are welcome to do what you need to do. And it's always important. I like to tell folks this is your hour. You signed up for this to give yourself some time to work with your journal, some time for a little bit of self-care, some time for a little bit of planning. So do what you need to do, right? So if the chat's too much, turn that off. If the music I'm playing isn't your jam, you can mute that. If my voice isn't your jam, you can mute me. We have closed captioning enabled. So do what you need to do for yourself. There's no right or wrong way to come to these socials. And Nicole, I always appreciate that you say I'm always your jam. But you know what? It's cool if I'm not, right? Like everybody can't be everything to everyone, right? It doesn't work that way. So, a couple other community guidelines just to make sure that you are aware that we do want to make sure we create this safe and supportive space. So we ask that you're kind to yourself and others, no promotions or spam. We respect everyone's privacy, no hate speech or bullying, limiting those repetitive product and accessory questions. It's fine to ask a few questions about pins that don't bleed or stickers where people get their stickers. But honestly, the best place for that is in Sonder Club, where people can post links and pictures and those kinds of things. And then remember that these socials really are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community. And goodness knows we have a super supportive, creative, smart, fun community here. Ultimately, though, you're responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So, if, again, anything it's not, you don't want to work on this section, you can always color. You can always sign up for this time to color. I know a lot of people, you put it on the calendar, you're here, and it gives you that time. So sometimes if you need to set that boundary with family to say, this is my hour, I'm going to be on this call, you take it, you do your thing, this is my hour. And so glad that you are able to do that here and be with us. So this month's theme, can you believe this is the last week of February? Oh my goodness. Bailey and I were talking before the social, and I feel like last year February was super long, and this year February has just been a blink, and now we're in the last week of it. So I don't, time is such a wibbly wobbly thing, right? It's just always so interesting to see how some months seem so long and some months seem so short. But we've been working with that theme of belief. And I think it's been really interesting, folks digging into their own personal beliefs. Where do they come from? Can we change them? Can we modify them? How do they really impact how we operate in the world, right? And there's a lot of our beliefs that are just happening in the background, kind of like your computer. There's things running in the background and you don't even know unless you actually do that kind of control alt delete and get the little task list. And you're like, look at all these things running in the background. This month has been kind of the control alt delete for our brains, right? And kind of thinking, what is going on in the background? What is going on since, with these beliefs and those kinds of things, and how I'm operating and my behaviors. And I talked about this last week, and I'm going to talk about it again because I think it's such a lovely idea of, we talk about doom scrolling, and we don't want to do doom scrolling and how bad that is for us, but someone coined the term bloom scrolling. And so this is a joyful way of using social media, intentionally scrolling for inspiring, uplifting, and positive content that nourishes your mind and your mood. And that's definitely been something I've been doing with my Instagram feed. I've been kind of going in and culling out anything that maybe makes me feel less than, or makes me feel like I have to compete, and just finding all these fun, happy, uplifting, joyous, quotes and pictures and all the different graphics and things. So remember, like, we do have control over our social media. We can cull things out. We can curate a lovely place where we can bloom scroll and be happy. So I think that's a great idea to do, and especially as we're thinking about beliefs, right? So our agenda for this morning, we're going to do the last week of the belief mind map. Next weekend will be a new one. We'll be doing March. So this is our last week. This will be week 4. We're going to do our rosebud thorn activity, which is on page 50 in your February journal. And then we're going to do those weekly setup pages and get everything all set up and ready for that last week. And if you notice, even though it's technically, like, they called it like a perfect month because it starts on the Sunday and ends on the Saturday, and just 4 weeks, and there's no like little dangler day left over at the end, I still would prefer that month start on the 1st, because or on Monday the 1st. They all start on the 1st. I like it when it starts on, but yes, exactly, Denise, right? I like it to start on Monday because then it makes things a little more tidy. But anyway, I don't rule the world, so I can't fix that. But so just know, most folks are probably going to stay working in their February journal, but you should have, I believe, I haven't looked at my March journal yet, but I'm pretty sure this week is also in the March journal. So if you're new and you only have March, that's fine. Or if you're like, I'm done with February, I'm going into March, right? I'm going to jump in there, and you can totally, you can do that too, right? It's totally up to you. My rule of thumb is usually whichever month has the most days in it, that's where I will do the week. So, for the week. So like, obviously this week has the 6 of the 7 days in February. So I'm going to stay in February. So, but again, some people like to hang out in both. It's just kind of whatever works for you. And if you've been with me for a while, I always use these 2 little cartoons, little drawings by the artist, The Latest Kate. And she says, there's room for you here just as you are. So if things are going great and you want to celebrate some things with us, we love to celebrate with our Sonder fam, although we know sometimes things don't always go great life has its series of ups and downs. So we're here to share in those with you as well. So you don't ever have to feel like you have to be, perfectly positive and not talk about some of the struggles or challenges that you're having. You can totally do that, right? We're here for all of it, right? Life is kind of that mixed bowl there. And then also the way you feel matters, and no emotion you feel is bad or unworthy. And I think this is an important belief, because I think sometimes we say, oh, I'm mad about this, and it's bad to be mad, or it's bad to be unhappy, or it's bad to be jealous, or right. It's like our emotions just are how they are. And the important thing is just feeling them and understanding them, and kind of thinking about how they're impacting you. And if you want them to change, then you can change, right? So let's dive into our mind map. Again, last week we'll be talking again about beliefs, and these have been some pretty deep prompts, right? For those of you who have done the last 3 weeks, those have been pretty deep, and we don't give you a ton of time here in the social to work on them. And so they're really good to think about throughout the week. It's always good to kind of revisit these little prompts. And so we're really thinking about that idea that beliefs shape us quietly. Some are chosen, some are inherited, some were formed to help us through a moment of time, and some we can just kind of let go of. This month, we've just been slowing down to notice a name, right? Not judging. So each week has been offering a space to reflect with curiosity and kindness. No fixing, no pressure, no right answers. We've just been writing what feels true right now and trusting that whatever comes up is enough, right? So this is week 4. If you have not done weeks 1, 2, and 3, you can always take a little snapshot. And work on that later. You do not have to. I always worry when people say, oh my gosh, I got to catch up. I haven't done this, or I have to catch up. You don't have to catch up, right? You really don't. That's a belief that you have. No one is going to come and knock on your door. We're not going to show up and knock on your door and ask to see your journal and say, oh, you missed week 2 of the belief mind map, a demerit for you, right? We're not doing that. So don't put that pressure on yourself, right? Because no one else is putting that pressure on you. So if you have not done weeks 1, 2, and or 3, and you want to just do week 4, just do week 4. So our question for week 4 is thinking about truth, right? And what belief feels true, even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unpopular. And then you could maybe answer the prompt, living this belief asks me to ... right? And let me give you a few questions to maybe kind of dig in a little bit more. So think about, how does this belief guide your choices when no one's watching, right? It's always that, what do we do when no one's watching? Where do you live this belief quietly rather than publicly? And what does it ask of you? Does it ask you to be courageous? Does it ask you to set boundaries? Does it ask you about compassion or restraint? And again, this idea of living this belief asks me to. And I think for me, when I think about maybe it's not necessarily unpopular, but maybe it's sometimes inconvenient or hard to remember. And the whole idea of guiding my choices when no one's watching is believing that everyone is going through something, right? And people are not out to get me. And so believing that if somebody cuts me off in traffic, a lady almost ran into me yesterday, and my initial reaction was kind of that anger. And then I thought, maybe she's dealing with something really hard, right? Maybe maybe she was, kind of, she's processing. Maybe she just got laid off from her job. Maybe she has someone in the hospital that she's going to see, and she just didn't see my car. I do have a white car, which are in accidents more frequently because people don't see them, which I think is kind of interesting. But it's a belief that is true even when it's inconvenient. So again, it's that, like, how can I hold on to that? And it's funny because my husband doesn't. Oh, he's always kind of grumpy in the car and has a little bit of the road rage piece. And I always, he'll get mad at someone like, oh, they're so stupid. And I was like, maybe their grandpa just died and they're not as focused on the road as they should be. Or maybe a song came on the radio that reminded me of a tough time in their life or a happy time in their life, right? And he's always like, oh, and he'll tell me, he's like, are you pulling a Silk and Sonder on me? But then he laughs and he's like, oh yeah, that you're right. We don't know what people are going through. So that's mine. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to play a little bit of music. let you work on this. And then feel free to share in the chat, excuse me, if you have a belief that feels true, even when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unpopular. And then you could potentially ask those other questions. So living this belief asks me to assume the best, right? Cheryl, you're hilarious in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to play a little bit of music and then we'll check back in and keep moving on. Right. So such good sharing in the chat. And again, I know that was like a very brief space. So again, maybe think of this is something you can kind of come back to, and you can also share in Sonder Club as you're, kind of thinking of them. But I appreciate some of them. Dawn says a truth is that evil exists, right? And that's a belief, and that's it's uncomfortable and it's probably unpopular. And so she's thinking about, so how can I be a light in the darkness? So living this belief asks me to be that light in the darkness, right? Knowing and believing that evil exists. Also, Ashley says the belief that rest is necessary, not something that has to be earned. I should not need to apologize when I need a break. And that can be unpopular, right? I think a lot of times in our culture, this idea of rest, like you have to earn it. You can't, if you sleep in late, you're lazy. If you spend a day doing nothing, and I have a good little thing that you can say instead of, what did you do this weekend? Oh, I didn't do anything. I did nothing. Right. It's like you rested. Right. And I think that's something that is very important. And yeah, thinking about a belief is that showing kindness and respect to others, it's definitely not what I'm always feeling inside. Right. So I think we do sometimes have some of those beliefs that we know we have, but sometimes we have to remind ourselves that living this belief is asking me to give people grace and give myself grace. So thank you all for reflecting, really kind of thinking about this. And again, this is a good one to reflect on for the rest of the week as you go through. I always get really good reflections and think about these when I'm in the shower, when I can't write anything down because um, brain is kind of relaxed. So let's move on to our rosebud thorn, which again is on page 50 here this week in our February journal. And so we're going to have our rose and our bud and our thorn. I like to start with my thorn when I do this activity, just so I can kind of get the thorn, the thing that's challenging or stressful and bothering me and maybe out of my control, and something maybe I could use some support with, or something that I'm hoping is this too shall pass. So for me, I'm HOA president, board president, and it's election time again. I'm not up for election, but we have 3 other seats that are, and there's just a group of people, and it's not a large group. We have 69 communities, and there's like maybe 6 people out of that are just bless their little hearts. They're very passionate, and they get everybody all riled up. And so it's one of those things where it's definitely challenging, and trying to get through that, and hoping that this too shall pass, right? And then our bud is something that's an emerging opportunity, something we're excited for, something that's fun, something that's, kind of looking forward to, excuse me, gives us hope or motivation or inspiration. So tomorrow is my library with my mom day. I take her every other Sunday, and we go to the library, and she returns some books, and she gets a new pile of books. And then we go out to lunch, and it's just a lovely mother-daughter. Sometimes my husband comes, sometimes he doesn't. Depends on what he's going on, but it's definitely something I look forward to, and it's always fun to spend some time with mom. And then our rose is something that we're grateful for, something that's positive, something we've really enjoyed, something that's made us very happy. And I went with my sister and my mom and my husband last night to see the new Elvis concert movie. So it's epic, Elvis Presley in concert in IMAX, and it is amazing. He was such an amazing performer. I never got to see him live because I was only 8 when he died, but just such an amazing concert, and also a lot of his talking. They found a lot of footage that had not been released before, a lot of it from his concert when he was in residence in Vegas. And so it was very, very interesting. So if you are any kind of a Elvis fan, or really like to listen to music, it definitely was a fun thing. So feel free to share. And I know folks are already sharing their rose, their bud, their thorn in the chat. I'll play just a little bit of music, and then we'll keep moving on. All right. So thank you for sharing in the chat and spending just a few moments reflecting back on the week. I know sometimes we have a tendency, if some bad things have happened, we have a tendency to think like, ugh, it was a really bad week. And then when we really just take the time, sometimes I go back through my photos in my phone to kind of see like, what did I take pictures of? Because I do take pictures of random things or screenshots while I do my bloom scrolling and remember some of the things that are the rose. And the rose doesn't have to be some huge thing, right? It could be sometimes my rose has been watching a dog in the car in front of me, like hang his little head out the window and just be loving life. And that can be something that was just really fun and made me smile, right? So it doesn't have to be um, something huge, right? So thank you all for sharing in the chat. We're going to keep moving on. And this is my thing I was mentioning, where it's alternatives to say I did nothing this weekend, right? I rested, I recharged, I paused, I listened to my body, I tuned in to myself, I focused on healing, I prioritized self-care, I protected my mental health, I regulated my nervous system, right? I think this is so important. And I know so many of us deal with that belief that you have to earn rest. You're lazy if you just sit around and you're not productive. So I think this is a great thing to keep in mind when someone says, like, what did you do today? Or what did you do this weekend? You can say things like, I tuned into myself. I listened to my body, right? And then I also really liked the little graphic with all the cute, warm, cozy things. Like, I don't chase goals, I chase cozy comforts. And definitely this weekend, I've been doing a lot of knitting while I watch the Olympics, because there's if you're a knitter and you're in Ravelry, which is kind of like a Facebook for knitters, they're doing the Ravel Olympics, which are not affiliated with the Olympics. So just to be clear, and we let you knit projects and you can kind of enter those in events, and it's super fun. So yes. So let us go to page 52. We're going to do page 52 and 53. And we're going to start with the how you want to feel. And I think this is a really good thing to remember, right? This idea of how do you stay so positive, right? Because sometimes we want like a positive feeling or that kind of thing. And when someone says, how do you stay so positive? You can think about, I accept every emotion I feel without shame or guilt and work through it. I'm not one dimensional. I'm a trillion parts and I love and accept them all. The goal isn't positivity, it's self acceptance. And so maybe you want to feel self acceptance this week. Maybe you've been, kind of, putting a lot of pressure on yourself, putting a lot of expectations, and so maybe this week you want to feel free. Maybe this week you want to feel joy, which I saw in the chat. Folks were talking about the fabulous figure skater who was watching her. That Alyssa Liu's performance was just amazing, and the joy that she had was so contagious. I was like, I want to be as happy as Alyssa was when she did her skate. She was like, I'm not here to win a medal. I'm just here to show people what I can do and have a good time, right? And I thought that was amazing. So here's some examples of things that folks have done. Maybe it's just one word, maybe it's several words, a phrase, a mantra, affirmation, a sticker, some sort of a picture, something you want to focus on. Maybe it's a quote that you really liked. Maybe it's your word of the year. Maybe you like to have that word of the year and you just like to bring that over. If you had something that was great that you've been doing last week, bring that feeling on over. And I see folks are kind of putting in the chat how you want to feel. So keep doing that. But I'm also going to talk about our weekly major 3 goals, because I think sometimes if we set up our goals, that once we accomplish these goals, we will have that feeling that we want to feel, or while we're working on that goal, we will have that feeling. So I wanted to kind of talk about this. And this is cute little graphic with cozy reading essentials, because I've definitely been doing lots of reading lately. So I think those are kind of fun. So maybe your goal is to have some cozy reading essentials. Here's some examples of things that folks have done. I love the person, they just have planning and then they have like some fun little stickers or drawings that they put in there. Sometimes people break the goals up into an early, a midday, and an evening goal. Maybe it's a frog, fun, and fierce. So frog is that idea of eating the frog, that thing that you've been avoiding. If you do it first off, then you can feel accomplished and you've done the worst thing and then it's out of the way. Maybe you want to, the person they have, like they're going to embrace planning, embrace doing, and embrace peacefulness. And then they move that over into their to-dos and made a little bingo, 3 things for each one of those goals. And I think that's a great way to do it. Bailey is saying in the chat she likes to write affirmations in her goal space. Yeah, and sometimes I have goals, and sometimes, yeah, I will write a cool quote or something like that in there. One person has the 4 C's. They have a create, consume, cavort, and commune category. So I think that's kind of a fun way to kind of break that up in there. Here's some other examples. Some people like to just do a fun little bingo. We do love a good bingo board here in Silk and Sonder. Or one person flipped their goals and their to-dos, because for their goals, they have some little pictures. And then their to-dos are just kind of over in the space where there's more of the lines for them to write in. Maybe you want to categorize it by letting go, leaning into, and things you want to learn. Again, I love the cute little, they have some fun stickers and just some specific things about seeing if they got the job offer. I know this was an older one, so I don't know if the person who did it, if they got the job offer or not. Send some more pen pal cards, finish setting up their February journal. So again, just some 3 little things in there. Some other ideas for things, right? They have a professional, a mind, and a body goal. Maybe it's again a quote where it says something like, if you change the belief first, changing the action is easier. Or if you don't, goals aren't quite your jam, maybe you want to have some quotes, some podcasts, movies, or TV shows you want to watch, some seasonal reads, ways to get excited about the week ahead. Maybe it's some songs you want to listen to. Excuse me, maybe it's some topics you want to know more about, maybe 3 new recipes. Again, the mini bingo board. I love the little bee that says life really does get better when you get back into your nerdy interests. And he's reading a little book, which I think is so cute. So I will let you work on that. Feel free to put how you want to feel this week. If you've got an idea for what you're going to put in that goal section, we'll play a little bit of music and then we'll keep moving on. Hey, so lots of good ideas in the chat, kind of what you're going to put in for those goals. Also, really thinking about how you want to feel. And I really do think that setting that intention for your feeling is kind of how you want to show up for yourself, how you want to show up for the world. I put joy just because I've just been so much enjoying that idea of what would it be like if I had joy every day and I felt joy and I showed up joyful, right? And so then really kind of thinking about what kind of goals do I need to set to have that happen. So again, if for some reason the goal section just kind of isn't something for you, fill it up with stickers, right? This is always a good place to put some of those poor little stickers that are tired of sitting in the drawer and they want to be stuck on your journal. So let's move over and let's look at our to-dos and our habits and activities, or habities, as I called them one time when I was talking too fast. Um, and because sometimes those are a little bit interchangeable. Obviously, the to-do list can be a list of just things that you want to do. But I appreciated this little quote about a man asked a gardener why his plants grew so beautifully. The gardener said, I don't force them to grow, I remove what stops them. And I thought that's an interesting belief, right? The kind of turning that belief of the belief of I must grow, I must give them this, I must do this, I must, kind of go from that angle of I remove what stops them, right? So, what are some things maybe that you need if you went from that belief? What would you remove? Right. And the things that stop you from your to dos. So, again, here's some examples of things that folks have done. Some people like to make a list of their monthly to dos, things that they want to have happen during the month. And then they use the Eisenhower matrix, where is that one that the little box up on the top right, where it talks about if things are important and urgent, then you do them. They're important and not urgent, you decide, like, are you going to set a different date to do? Are you going to decide if you really want to do them? Maybe they're not important, but they're urgent. Maybe they're things you can delegate, or they're not important and not urgent. Maybe there's some things you can delete or drop or delay, kind of thinking along those lines. Also, I like the person, they have it divided up into self, home, and work, and they're giving themselves little points for when they do those things. I think that's kind of a fun way to gamify it. Excuse me. I also really like the Pomodoro technique when I need to get some things done, especially if maybe there are things that I'm not really looking forward to. I will pick a task. I set a 25-minute timer, and then I work on just that task, right? It's that monotasking, right? I just allow myself to work on that task. No checking emails. No no distracted by other things, right? I work on that, and then the time is up, and then I take a 5-minute break, and then I can do that again. For every 4 sets of those, I can take a longer 15 to 30-minute break, and I think that is super helpful for me getting things done. And often I find I'm surprised, it maybe only takes me 2 rounds, and then I'm done with the thing, and I think, oh, that didn't take nearly as long as I thought it would when I actually focus on it, right? um Here's some other things folks have done, and I have used this one for the last couple of weeks because I really appreciate the idea of the one challenge that they gave themselves. If you decide to skip, delay, or opt out of a healthy and reasonable task or a habit and activity like going to the gym, you must physically write the reason why on a post-it note. No shame. But if the reason seems dumb, crumple it up and do the thing. If it makes sense on paper, give yourself grace. At least you thought about it. So I thought that was a great idea. A lot of times we make excuses, but this is just saying you have to write it down. If you're not going to go to the gym because you're too tired, you literally have to write that on paper. It's too cold outside to go to the gym. And then you have to look at that and think, is that really reasonable? Right. Maybe you want to just give yourself a reminder to treasure yourself. Maybe you want to make a list of don't do this instead. Maybe it's some needs and wants. Maybe you have a list of things like people you need to call, some errands you need to run, some things you need to follow up with, some things you need to schedule. And then one person divided it into each day. And so they have a thing for each day there in their to-do box. Also, again, fun graphics, right? We are still in February. Maybe you want to work on those things that are on the bucket list there, have some of those things down as some to-dos that you want to do this week. And if you, Ordinary and Happy, they have an Instagram account. You can also subscribe to their daily newsletter where they send all sorts of fun little calendars. So this was a fun one of 30 days of being true to yourself. So you could just pick one of those, and maybe you want to do that, read an inspiring story. something along those lines. It's kind of fun to do. And then our habits and activities, this is a little bit different from that habit wheel that's back a few pages, right? Where it has the monthly habit wheel. The monthly one are usually things you want to do every single day. These are things that are more for specific to the week. So I always have things like pack my lunch for work 3 days because I'm in the office for 3 days out of the 5. So I'll tell myself I want to pack lunch for those days. And I liked this little graphic that talked about everybody says be consistent, right? And nobody really says how. So here's how. Define your absolute minimum on bad days. Good days, you do a full workout. Bad days, you just show up for 5 minutes. And I love this idea of like, here's a habit. Here's what happens with this habit on a good day, and here's what happens with this habit on a bad day. So you give yourself an option. So you still can do the habit, you still can do the thing, but you've got a minimum that keeps the streak alive even when life is chaos. So consistency isn't always about doing your best. It's about never doing nothing. And I think that is so important because sometimes you're like, well, I don't have 30 minutes to spend at the gym, or it's too cold outside. I don't want to get outside to go for a walk, or, oh, I'm not going to read before bed. I'm too tired. So if your goal is always like read 15 minutes before bed on a good day, on a bad day, you let yourself read for 1 minute. You read one page, right? So you're still doing the thing, you're just you just have different levels of it. And I think that is so very important for us to think about, because we get that all or nothing mindset going, and then that's not helpful, right? So we want to be a little more helpful with that. So here's some examples of some things that people have put in here, and if you have ones that worked really well last week, bring them over, right? Bring them over to this habit and activity page. Keep bringing those over. You don't have to have brand new things. So, and one person has some stickers, right? They're like, I'm not going to do this page, right? So I'm just going to do some fun little stickers. One person has things like being kind to myself, acceptance of myself, getting enough sleep, getting outside, more fresh foods. Maybe it's no unnecessary purchases. Maybe it's doing things like deleting some emails, unsubscribing from different sales sites so you don't make those unnecessary purchases. Using music as motivation, like lots of fun, different ideas of things that you can put here. And you don't have to fill in every line. Maybe there's one specific thing you want to work on this week. So that's what you're going to put in there. Also, some people make it a to-don't list. Here's the thing. Here are things I'm not going to do. Maybe you make it a ta-da bingo or a ta-da list, where it's things once you do them, you can write them down and then you can check them off. Here's some ideas of things you can do to relax after a long day, doing things like journaling, having a nourishing dinner, doing some gentle yoga, taking a warm bath, engaging in your hobby. Maybe it's things you want to be instead of to do. So you want to be grounded, compassionate, reflective, active, delighted, be kind, be calm, be purposeful. Lots of good ideas there. And here are some February bucket list, right? So maybe there's something on here you want to do. And the little goal column is how many times you want to do it that week. So maybe it's one time, right? So maybe you want to try a new recipe, you want to put that in the habit and activity, and you want to do it one day this week. And then maybe you can figure out what day that might happen. Also, here's some fun slow winter things. Again, it's still winter, right? We still have a few more weeks until it's the official start of spring, even though that groundhog said we were going to have 6 more weeks, right? It's all good, all good. So maybe some different things that you want to do, maybe some afternoon tea, those kinds of things. So let us know what you're going to put in those to-dos, those habits and activities. I will scroll through and let you see some of these different ideas, and then we'll check back in and keep moving on. Hey, I saw lots of good ideas there in the chat for things that you're wanting to put in that to do or the habits and activities. And Dawn says, I want to feel rested. So my habits are are the word rested, read, engage in self-compassion, silence. So I love the idea of coming up with the habits that are going to help you with your feeling, right? What are those things that you can do that will help you have that feeling? So it's nice to kind of tie those in and take a look. The other thing a lot of people will put in their habits and activities is to remind themselves to go back if you're doing the mood tracking or whatever you're tracking on that page and the monthly habits, to remind yourself to go back and fill those in. Or maybe you remind yourself this is a good time to go back and look at those February intentions, right? How have those been working out for you? How might you want to start thinking about changing them up for March or keeping them the same? It's a good time to give yourself a reminder to reflect on what you have already been working on. So we're going to flip over to the next page, page 53. And I think a lot of folks repurpose a lot of these sections. So I'm going to kind of go over all of them and give you lots of different ideas so you can decide what you want to do with each. This is always my page to kind of experiment with some different things. Maybe I want to track or things I want to plan to kind of see how they work out. And that's the nice thing. You're only with it for a week, and then you can change things up the next week if that didn't work out. I really enjoyed this little meme that said better names for food. So we've got the crisscross floppers. We've got the hardened tears of the Candyman for the candy corn. Wheat wands. I like wheat wands instead of breadsticks. A leaf bucket. Scratchy hot bread. Pepperoni. Pepper meat cheese 360. Tongue tickling bubble juice. Zigzag tubers. Hot liquid lumps. Maybe your meal plan will be coming up with new names for some of the things that you will be eating this week. And again, I think the meal plan is probably one that a lot of people like to repurpose. So lots of different ways to do that. Obviously, you can plan your meals or keep track of it. My husband calls the seltzer water static water, because it's like the static on the screen. Um, One good thing, maybe it's a daily affirmation, maybe it's an exercise tracker, 7 types of rest, a self-care planner. Maybe it's your belief of the day. What thing did you reflect on a belief that you had? Maybe something, spend a little time kind of identifying a belief. Here's another one from Ordinary and Happy that has some evening journaling for February. Some people like to use this space for a very quick and tiny writing journaling prompt. There's the meal plan for my soul, where she asks different things each day, like what's draining my energy or what did I do for my mental health today. Super fun little moment of Zen doodles. I think that's fun. Oh, Amanda says her daughter calls the seltzer water spicy water. That's a good one too. So lots of fun ways to kind of do that. Our mind body health plan. Maybe you want to, I liked this graphic that said you've come a long way this year. Be proud of each and every step you have taken to get where you are today. So maybe you want to each day think about where you are today and all the steps you've taken to get where you are. Maybe you want to do a fun little puzzle where it says, I thrive when all the pieces come together. And then they have the different pieces of things they want to do, guided meditation, practicing gratitude. I also popped in this different idea for things. If you're feeling mentally drained, emotionally drained, physically drained, or sensory drained, some different ideas as you kind of think of maybe what you need. So maybe things like you want to take some 5-minute breaks or do a phone-free morning. I know a lot of folks are observing different things for Lent. So maybe there's some different things that you want to kind of write in there, or different ideas for how you're going to work on giving up that thing. I always had a friend who always gave up watermelon for Lent, which I thought was kind of not quite the point of, because there's not a lot of watermelon around right now. But anyway, so maybe you want to think about your feels and your needs. Maybe you want to think about a highlight of the day. Maybe you want to, I like the one about if you're making your 10-year-old you proud and giving 80-year-olds something to reminisce about, I think you're doing okay. So that's a good idea to kind of think of things that way. Maybe you're keeping track of what thing are you doing today to make your 10-year-old you proud. And then there's the shopping list, right? Maybe there's some things you need to buy, some things you need to get, make a little shopping list. Other ideas of things that folks have done, they have their daily rituals where they're tracking off each thing they do. A boring stuff bingo. That's a fun way to make the boring stuff a little more fun. A just for fun bingo, celebrating the wins. Um, Maybe a little bedtime routine or a mindfulness activity. And then the I am loving is just whatever you are loving. And I am certainly loving Alyssa Liu. She is the most excited, happy, joyful. Her story is amazing. If you haven't, heard about how I love how she says she retired from ice skating at 16. I'm like, you retired. Can you just say you quit ice skating at 16? But then she came back when she was 18 after she had really kind of realized she did love skating, but she wanted to do it on her own terms. And she is just powerful, amazing, fabulous. And so that is definitely something I am loving. So I'll play just a little bit of music, let you work on this section, and then we will check back in and wrap things up. Right. So, believe it or not, we have come to the end of our time together. I know it is always the fastest hour. I don't know how it goes by so quickly, but hopefully, you've got lots of good ideas for ways you want to move forward this week, what kinds of things you want to do in this last week of February, what that's looking like. Um, and then, as always, we ask if you would like to share your weekly planner with us in Sonder Club. We love it. These are all your examples. I always say there's nothing better than HI, human intelligence. None of them are AI. They're not that AI stuff. We've got lots of HI here, got lots of intelligence here. Um, and thank you, Emma, for saying that I am your jam. So glad that you were here. And I appreciated you with your talking about skiing and kind of retiring from that when you were 17. Yeah, the stuff that those athletes go through is just so intense. So I just love that she kind of took a step away and then she came back and did her own thing. So share those planners. Let us know kind of what you're doing with these different pieces. If you come up with the better, more fun pasta. If somebody is coming up with the fun pasta things, make that and share it on Sonder Club, and then maybe I'll share it in one of the socials. So thank you again so much for being here. Hopefully we will see you again. We've got another weekly tomorrow after evening, and then one on Monday morning. Lots of stuff coming up in March too. So I hope you all have a fabulous, fabulous rest of your Saturday, and we will see you all again soon.